This is going to be a really important month in the Alex Murdaugh case. On January 16th, we have the status conference, where Justice Jean Toal will decide whether Alex Murdaugh will get an evidentiary hearing. If she decides yes, she will go over the guidelines for that hearing, which is expected to begin January 29th. Hopefully, this month will end with the biggest questions hanging over this case finally getting answered once and for all.
Cups up, guys.
Cups and bottles up. I had the honor of attending your event for the premium members in Hilton Head on December 29th and just meeting so many nice people and putting, faces with names when we have our Thursday nights and people are, on the chat room sending their comments to meet Ed Kelly and Matt and some of the other people. Liz, there was a lady who drove from Bel Air, up in Maryland.
I heard about that. That blew my mind. I wish I had been there to see her.
Two women jumped in a car in New York and drove the entire distance from New York. We have people from Virginia. It was the guy in the beard that stayed and talked to you on the couch. He drove from Virginia. And then people from Tennessee. I mean, you're talking about people that are making sacrifices during the holidays. And, just to watch Mandy, David did an amazing job putting it together. And he's such a good Toastmaster general. I mean, really nice things. But just to see Mandy, basking in her appreciation, she just really appreciated it. And she needs this because she takes a lot of fire, a lot of incoming that is not deserved. And these people weren't coming with an agenda. They just wanted to say thank you. They wanted to talk to us. It wasn't, it was equal. It wasn't starstruck kind of thing. It was just to say, hey, thanks so much. You guys have really enriched our lives.
It really was a cool way to end the year and just be reminded of all the great community of people that we have supporting us literally around the world. And I'm focusing on them this year. I'm not focusing on the group that wants to destroy us. I'm not focusing on the people who are just at this point making up straight lies. And when they get caught in a lie, they just make up another lie. And there's no sense in responding to it. There's no sense in acknowledging it. I'm just going to do my best to serve our supporters and be there for our supporters and keep exposing the truth like our supporters want us to do.
Love Noah Pines. And he said something amazing last week. It was about somebody else in their podcast. And we were talking about it. And he said, if somebody does a podcast in the woods and nobody hears it, is it a podcast? I mean, I thought it was just a brilliant thing to say, but that's the truth. I mean, that's the truth. If you want to supplant True Sunlight or whatever, start your podcast and see if you can get the same audience. End of story. He's a great criminal defense attorney in Atlanta, by the way, who has done some amazing, amazing things. Not only does he, on a daily basis represent people and do it zealously, but he got somebody out of prison who was in prison for a long time based on, a person not being guilty. So he's an interesting cat.
Awesome. The cool thing about Noah is we're going to have him on the show. So we'll talk more about that. So let's talk about the news that's been happening. We have about a week to go before the first hearing in Alex's quest for a new trial. Eric, do you want to bring us up to speed about where things stand? I will say this, though, before you start. Justice Toal, Justice Jean Toal, who is now has jurisdiction over this issue, she made it so that, and it didn't quite click with me until I was going through the documents. Normally, briefs and motions and supporting documents and the exhibits, what have you, get filed with the clerk of court in the county, right? And you don't necessarily know when those are going to get filed unless the state or lawyers tell you, right? So you can see all this media. We know who's getting hints dropped in their ears by Dick and Jim because they always seem to know when something's been filed, unless Becky was telling them, who knows. But it's a crapshoot, right? So you have to be on it. Like, for instance, our journalist Beth Braden has to call all the time to see if anything's been filed. But Justice Toal made it so that she took it out of there. She said it's not appropriate to file it in Colleton County given the issues that are we're discussing here. But she had it uploaded, so everything goes into C-Track. It gets filed with the clerk of court for the Supreme Court. So we can check that every day passively and see whether something's been filed. It's wonderful for transparency. It's totally in line with, she's the whole reason South Carolina has an electronic court tracking system to begin with. So I like what I'm seeing so far when it comes to her wanting this to be open to the public, and so far so good is what I'll say in that regard.
Do you say that because Justice Beatty, Chief Justice Beatty, wrote an order kind of codifying how that would play out, and I'm also seeing that they may have first pass it whether the public sees what's filed. Did you get that from the order from Justice Beatty?
Who's the they?
Meaning
Supreme
the
Court.
the Supreme Court.
When they,
because of this. Well,
oh, you
not
mean like they decide
necessarily.
what goes on the public? I didn't get
Right.
that, no, but I'd have to read that again.
Okay.
Yeah.
That I just want to make sure that there's not going to be a first pass at looking at, because we have a procedure if you want to file something under seal, and you do that. But it seems like they took this away from the clerk of court. Did you think it had to do with Becky Hill that they took it away from the clerk of court, or just because this is a more manageable way to deal with it? The filings being in Walterboro as opposed to
both. I think both. I mean, it made sense. Obviously, the clerk of court is at the center of this, and so it shouldn't be in Walterboro. But also, like Liz said, it just needs to be in a very transparent and fair system where we can all see what's going on versus getting bits and pieces from different media outlets. And Dick and Jim have been on top of this the entire time. You'll notice they leak to certain outlets as soon as they file something. And obviously the state does not do the same thing because the state doesn't do that. And because of that, I thought this was really interesting. So when there was a bunch of filings in C-Track, when I first saw a media outlet write about the defense has filed a motion, I checked C-Track, and the state had also filed their motion at the same time. But I noticed several media outlets that night only wrote about the defense's motion.
Mm-hmm.
They did
Correct.
not write about the state's, which shows me that they are just getting emailed this stuff from Dick and Jim. They're not even checking the C-Track. They're not even checking to see if there's other filings. And they won the headline game in that case because there was all these super aggressive headlines. The defense says blah, 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 in their latest to bolster their chance for a Murdaugh trial. And then it wasn't until the next day, and we pointed it out on our podcast the next day, that the state filed, there's a ton of motions. It's not just the defense. And again, we saw very plain Jane headlines about the pre-hearing brief. But speaking of that, Eric or Liz, are we clear about what's going to go on the 16th?
I think you're going to hear Justice Toal announce how it's going to play out on the 29th.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you guys read the New York Post article yesterday, but it was about the circus surrounding the media and this trial, and it came off extremely one-sided in favor of the defense once again. And it's Dana Kennedy, who was on that he was on the Fox News documentary with Buster and
teasing that she knew more was coming.
Yes, before
Remember
Becky
that.
was.
Yeah.
Yes. She said, I think there's going to be another big twist in the case. And then all of a sudden there was a big twist in the case. All of a sudden this Becky stuff comes out. And she's been very pro Murdaugh for a while now in her coverage. But the thing that stuck out to me the most was that she mentioned, this case has been crazy and this case has gotten a ton of publicity and everything. There has been a circus. We all will be first to admit that. But she did not mention that Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin have been the circus leaders. And no mention of that. No mention of them going to CrimeCon. No mention of them having meet and greets at CrimeCon. And like,
On Jim's podcast.
And Jim having talk about podcasting, podcasters springing up out of nowhere. Jim Griffin has had a podcast throughout this whole thing. Like, oh my gosh, it's just so one-sided, and I cannot believe, and I think a lot of people see it because of us, but I cannot believe that so many journalists are still doubling down and are still on this Team Murdaugh agenda for whatever reason, and they don't care how many audience members they lose and how much trust they lose in their audience for being so biased.
Let me tell you how that
Are
came
they
about.
losing their audience though, guys?
I was out west skiing this week with my family, and Dana Kennedy texted me and said, "I'd like to talk to you. I'm writing an article. I have a number of questions I want to ask you." I did not want to interview with her because when you get on the phone with her, sometimes it's a very long, and one question begets another. So I wrote exactly what I wanted to say, which is, she said, "Can you give a comment?" And I said exactly what I just said to you, that Harpootlian was the one that suggested that the jurors get lawyers. I didn't inject myself. I want to protect their interests. And I said, as long as their testimony is back in chambers in camera with Justice Toal doing it, my role is going to be limited. However, if Harpootlian is going to insist on invading their lives, then I'm going to surface. And I said, I'm going to do nothing else. I'm not part of this hearing. I don't plan on doing anything unless the latter happens. And that's what I wrote. And she turned it into, well, I've made a cottage industry. I'm doing bobbleheads, whatever. The fact of the matter is that I do have a role here because I have represented 7 of Alex's victims. And I have been successful with my partner, my law firm, not Eric, my law firm, in getting compensation for them. I still have ongoing matters for the Plyler sisters against Russell Lafitte. I still have ongoing matters for all the victims because it was not able to be settled at the mediation on December 21st in front of the mediator of the Victims Fund, the $1.8 or $1.9 million. Plus I represent with Ronnie Stephen Smith, plus I represent 4 jurors. So Dick Harpootlian is saying it's just lawyers who want to try to make a name for themselves. I'm in the middle of the bramble bush. So the fact is, they should have said, sure, I am commercializing it, not for my own gain. Yes, the podcast, my own gain. My book, my own gain. But the merchandise I sell goes to charity. And she knew that because I told her that. And she made it sound like I'm just using these jurors to make money. I mean,
Again,
I made money on the cases.
And without having that exact same lens pointed at Dick and Jim and all of the things that they've done and all of the times that they've been on TV and all of the circus that they have led us on over and over again. And
Jim Griffin put out an alibi for a year that was false.
Right. Like,
he put an alibi out that Alex was nowhere near the murder scene for one whole year.
And like, I go back to, these people were saying right after the roadside shooting that Alex was attacked by a rando and that they were getting ready to release the sketch of this rando person coming after the murder. I mean, they have fed us crap after crap after crap. And
Nick said he was going to show you who the murderer was at the trial, Mandy. That's another thing. Don't forget that too.
Yeah.
They did. We got to see who the murderer was. It was Alec. So
yeah, they did. They
Dick
served him up on a silver plate for us.
I know. Excellent job with that. But I guess, so I asked the question a little bit earlier, just like, do we think these people are losing their audience? Because I think it goes back to, we've said this a lot, but like Mandy and I have always been of the opinion, like, if you can't be first, be best. And the large focus that we find to be far more rewarding and effective is to be best, is to give the context, connect the dots, do the deep work that you need to do to understand an issue and then present it to people in a way that can be understood. I know that that gets sort of twisted into this thing of like, we're telling people what to think. It's more that we're trying to explain why we've arrived at the conclusions that we've arrived at. So what bothers me is, and I think it was last night, a law and crime reporter posted, it would clearly look to me like a gross misunderstanding of what the issue is that Justice Toal is going to have to look at, which is, I'm so sick of saying it at this point. Like it's, and I think people even noted this online, that they're sick of like having to explain it to people, which is, I'm glad they're doing it. But it's this issue of the egg lady juror and whether Becky's credibility comes into play with that. And I think our friend Mandy Powers Norrell, how do you say her last name, Norrell or Norrell?
Norrell.
Mandy Powers Norrell, I did it again, Mandy Powers Norrell, pointed out that, hey, this isn't actually the issue. The egg lady wasn't removed because of what Becky said. She was removed because Judge Newman said that she had spoken to other people, and Judge Newman made a whole point of saying and putting it on the court record, this is not because of A, it's because of B. And it seemed like this reporter still couldn't it's not that she couldn't understand, it was just like she's so dug in deep on the issue that Dick and Jim want the public and Justice Toal to sort of be fooled into believing is what's at the heart of it when it's over here. So they're all saying, look over here, and the reporters are doing it. And again, they're doing it because there's a reward in it. You get the reward of Dick and Jim sending you information, or if it's not Dick and Jim, they're what do you call them? Their proxies, their friends, giving you some hints, giving you some engaging, charming information that, makes you feel special and like you're one of the people that is in this inner circle, that you deserve it, that your talent has brought you to this point, when you're completely being used by it. So I think that's what's so frustrating, is that we've gotten to this far. We are now in January, when all of this is going to be hopefully decided in a way that ends it, so we don't have to talk about this because we want to move on. We're now there, and it's still clear the power that Dick and Jim have over the narrative. And I don't think it's going to change. I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier in this episode, which is that you have the originating notion. Whoever is first to tell you something, that is what gets implanted in your brain as sort of like the baseline truth, I guess. And they don't want to see anything that makes them have to confront the idea that they're being misled by Dick and Jim, maybe. I'm not really sure. I can't speak for them, but it is very frustrating. So I wonder, going back to the first, if you can't be first, be best, I think so many reporters want to be first. And because of that, the audience... it ends up getting misled, and it becomes sort of a self-fulfilling thing where the audience craves more of that same information, and they want to be the first to present it. And then now we have a grossly misinformed public.
We got to get to the bottom of that on the 16th.
Mandy and Eric, what are your biggest concerns going into this then, the hearing on January 16th? Like what Eric, what's on your mind?
Well, I just want to know that Justice Toal is going to be the one that does the in-camera of the jurors. That's all my domain is. I can't comment on anything else. I want to make sure that the jurors are protected, their names can't be used, they not testify in open court, and nobody come out of court and say, oh, juror 630 said this or 680 said that. That's the first thing. My concern on the 29th is it just becomes a slaying of Becky, that it's just Becky this, she doesn't eat tuna fish, she's got body odor, or Becky this, she doesn't go to the bathroom, just crazy stuff, meaning we're going to attack her every which way in Sunday to show that she's not credible. As a overriding thing, she may not be credible when you take all of her different things on something, but on the juror issue, that's a small refined issue, and her giving tours or other things that they're complaining about on the Ethics Commission, that has nothing to do with the juror issue. And I want Justice Toal to, my hope is that she hones in and stays within this small barrier of juror issues, and it doesn't become the Becky Hill trial. Because if it becomes the Becky Hill trial, we got problems. I'm just telling you that.
I am very concerned about the media having tunnel vision and really wanting this next trial to happen because it's low-hanging fruit, it's easy clicks, it's easy views. it's drama, you don't have to do much. And I have seen this over and over where I think a lot of reporters just want it so bad and want it to be true that they are ignoring like the things that we have talked out today, which is, okay, none of that has anything to do with any of this. And but I do have a little bit more faith, I think. I'm going back and forth as to what's going to happen. But I still think it means a lot that when Dick and Jim filed their brief last week, they really didn't have any more evidence. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah, there's nothing else.
Same arguments, same everything.
Yeah, same argument.
You would think that
exactly.
like the brilliant legal minds of this country who care about the defense, if Alec had really gotten an unfair trial, I could see like these brilliant minds coming out of the woodwork to be like, hey, cite this case, do that, say this. Nothing's changed. It basically
Right.
seems like
The
it's
issue isn't the unfairness of the trial. They put that off the table. They're not saying that he got an unfair trial or a fair trial.
Right.
They're saying this is ministerial.
Right.
And it's black and white. If I step over this line right here that you just drew for me, Liz, if I just ever so slightly step over the line, that's it. He gets a new trial. And let me tell you something, guys. I was on the end of the year show on Court TV. They rated the Murdaugh trial the #1 legal story of 2023. We're talking about Johnny Depp trial. Didn't supplant it. We're talking about Gwyneth Paltrow. We're talking about the Kohlberger case. We're talking about the Florida case of the Addisons. Nothing touched Murdaugh. Murdaugh was #1 by a country mile. And you said it, Mandy. It's low-hanging fruit. Is somebody going to really fight to not have the new trial other than the state? Because the public definitely wants it. The media definitely wants it. We seem to be the only ones who are saying there shouldn't be a new trial.
I say with that, cups down. This is going to be a very important month for us, and we're going to continue to cover it. And then hopefully we'll be in a position where we can move on to other cases.
And we will be broadcasting both status conference on the 16th and the January 29th hearing. And that note, cups down.
Cups down,
Cups
guys.
down.
We'll talk about those things soon.
See you guys.
Great
Bye.
show, everybody.